about what Bonnie was saying about acknowledging anger, because I'm actually currently in an argument with my future mother-in-law. I kid a little bit, but so my fiance is from the East Coast, and my mother-in-law, future mother-in-law, cannot understand why my father votes for Trump. Most of my family likes Trump. We're having an open bar wedding. We're a little scared. That dynamic, but she's like, you know, I'm engaged to a gay Jewish person. My brother's dating a Brazilian woman. My sister's dating an Indian man. My dad loves us all, but in her head, that's in compare. How can a Trump supporter is racist? What she doesn't understand is her home that she bought for about $150,000 in the suburbs of DC is now worth $800,000. My parents' home from when they bought it in the early 90s is flat. Urban America doesn't understand that the Great Recession recovery was an urban recovery. Actually, it's been true for a few decades now. The most new capital in America now is being concentrated in urban areas, as we saw in that slideshow. You just see it, you feel it. The poorest parts of Iowa, I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The poorest parts of Iowa are those towns of 5,000. Those are the towns that lost their factories when we offshored our manufacturing supply chain. The problem is, once that factory closes, you cannot sell your house. So your kids might go to college, they might get a job in Denver, Minneapolis, whatever. First of all, you can't even move to be near them. And so these communities become these retirement areas, but they're also decaying. No new capital's coming in. And so what's happened too is, it's a lot of this, I don't know if you've heard the term bowling alone. Yeah. You see it, you just feel it. The downtown died, and then maybe went to the mall. Well, then the mall died. So where do you go to see each other? And then now we have these tech monopolies that want all the Google and Facebook, they want all the money and none of the responsibility, and that's where communication occurs. So our local newspapers are dying. And I actually still get Storm Lake, Iowa's newspaper. I get a hard copy of it. It's run by this man named Mark Cullen. You might have heard of him. He won a Pulitzer Prize 2 years ago for taking on Big Ag in Iowa. I get it, and I forget how great a hard newspaper is. On the front page, here's a story on a new family that moved into town, or here's a new business, here's an artist. It's about creating a sense of place, and he's also driving something. They really want to repair the lake, so the newspaper does articles on the lake. Facebook doesn't do that. Facebook wants you to get mad and get into a comment war with your in-laws. But that's the problem, is it turns everyone inward. And so because, going back to the poor parts of Iowa, those towns of 5,000, what happens is, factory closes, you didn't get a job somewhere else an hour away. So you drive further for less pay. Who doesn't want Casey's Pizza after a long day? You put on weight, you see the civic society collapse. Iowa's now the fourth most obese state in the country. So you're talking about the state with best farmland, and this is not an income thing either. You just kind of see how there's validity to that anger. And that's something, and also keep in mind, people in rural areas, you go into urban America. You go to the mall, you go to the fair, you do all that stuff. Urban America doesn't come to rural America. They bypass it. So there's these two worlds that are diverging that only one understands the divergence. And I think that's one of the big things of this moment. And our politics rewards, means campaign finance. To run a House race in America, a competitive seat costs $15 million. $100 million for a Senate seat. There's no money in Iowa. So you have to then go to the East Coast, collect your checks. So I went off on that rant because I just think that's so true. I just think acknowledging anger is so key. And that's why I love antitrust. Antitrust validates that anger. It says it's okay, you're okay to be angry. But instead of blaming the immigrant, blame Tyson's. Because that's why wages are stagnant for slaughterhouse workers. That's why farmers are getting 14 cents on the dollar. It's because all the money is increasingly going to a few people. And what's kind of even worse is a lot of these multinational corporations in America aren't even American. So we're essentially subsidizing letting all this wealth being extracted from rural areas to these foreign corporations. And GPS is straight up a Brazilian mafia company. Smithfield, what is Smithfield? A quasi-Chinese state-owned corporation? 1 in 5 hogs now in America is owned by the Chinese state, quasi. We've never been in power this concentrated by outside actors before in our history. And so I'm helping to start an antitrust center at Yale, and there's this big battle going on in antitrust antitrust is just about power. Who should have power? And the first antitrust laws in actually the world come from Iowa, which I just learned about a month ago, which I think is a really cool fact. But a lot of our old antitrust framework was rooted in Louis Brandeis. Anti-big. We don't want concentrated economic power because it corrupts the political process. So we had that framework for a long time. And actually a big part of our post-World War II reconstruction in Europe and Japan was breaking up the cartels that financed the fascists. The most famous one being IG Farben, that financed Hitler. It's his largest campaign donor. This is really hard to talk about, but basically Eisenhower went in there, broke up this chemical company. By the way, Auschwitz was created by this company because they wanted to create nitrogen fertilizer, and so they used Jewish slave labor. We broke it up into like 9 or some companies, and it's kind of reforming itself. Kind of like we saw with AT&T, when we broke up AT&T, it's kind of, they're all buying each other. Bayer Monsanto is this weird creature that comes out of IG Farben. Anyways, it's all this fascinating history of like, we used to have this really robust thing of deconcentrating power. And now we're living in a second Gilded Age that started with the election of President Reagan. And Trump, I think, is just the nasty end of this. Where this man named Robert Bork, somebody might have heard of him from President Nixon. He was Nixon's hatchet man. He redefined what antitrust is in America. He says there's this horrible phrase called the consumer welfare standard. As long as you can show in your merger that it leads to lower prices for the consumer, your merger can go through. Well, guess what? DC is full of these hired gun economists that will produce the numbers you need to justify your merger. That's why you have 2 companies that have like a 78% market share in corn seed. And why one economist who does this hired gun work made $100 million. To me, it's like, it's the best way to neuter antitrust. It's the most pro-monopoly theory you can create. And the whole American economy now is full of cartels. I mean, we all know hogs, pigs, you name it. But peanut butter, one company sells 50% of peanut butter. All these random mobile homes. Warren Buffett has a 50% market share in mobile homes. Who would have guessed? We have this illusion of choice, too. You walk into Whole Foods and like you see a fancy peanut butter brand. It's the same peanut butter companies that does Aldi's. Just the rich person doesn't want to think they're buying the same peanut butter as the Aldi shopper. And the problem is, for a long time, our framework on this is, oh, you don't like this system, opt out. Buy CSA, which, great, we get a CSA. The thing is, you're not challenging power. And what happens is the big boys bought the system. So all those companies you see, heck, Coca-Cola has a milk company now. They bought the system. So I'm part of this. We're trying to help shift the way we conceptualize power. Going back to the back to the Louis Brandeis model of deconcentrating power. It's like, as we kind of had this conversation over what a progressive farm bill should be, I mean, that's the beauty of this moment is we're so clearly living in a Wall Street farm bill era, and it's breaking before us. I mean, we know it's breaking right now, but the second these farm bailouts stop, we know the bottom will fall. And the question is, what do we do at that moment? I think, to me, what gives me the most hope in this space is actually putting animals back on the land. We need more farmers. I think CAFO's, it's kind of incredible to watch this presidential cycle to see how many candidates have actually called for a moratorium on CAFOs. I was at a Federal Trade Commission conference in DC a few weeks ago in DC. I was at a hotel by the ballpark. And you get that hotel food breakfast. And I didn't eat it, and this older guy didn't eat it either. And we start to have a conversation. He's like, what do you do when we start talking antitrust? Which, by the way, antitrust is a really fascinating bipartisan coalition we can build. We both laughed, and we start talking about the food. Who enjoys it? Hotel breakfasts are like the epitome of like that. I gotta watch my language. Okay. It's a really shitty breakfast. The bacon, it's CAFO bacon. You notice in the texture of the bacon. It's pinker, it's just pure fat, it's not good. The eggs are awful, those CAFO fluffy, they're not natural, no one can make an egg like that. It's all like Fruit Loops and stuff. It's not a real meal. And so, like, as we start this conversation, sure, let's talk about power. And it's fun to talk about Smithfield. It's fun to, like, you know, get your pitchforks up in there and say, it's not right that when the CEO of that company is making $290 million a year. When a slaughterhouse worker in America is only earning $3 more in the last 25 years, not adjusted for inflation. And what the farmer's getting is the lowest it's ever gotten, and price of bacon was cheap under President Truman than it is under Trump. The evidence is here. I mean, everything about the whole Robert Bork thing is BS by that statement alone. Consumers are paying more, workers are getting paid less, farmers are getting paid less, the CEO of a foreign national is getting all the money. But also what gives me hope here is to rethink all this food system. So let's put farmers back in the land. Because no robots can do what a family farm dairy can do. Or, you know, someone who does cattle on the land or pigs. I mean, I don't think my state of Iowa has even grappled with what happened to Iowa in the late 90s with the hog farmers. That's when we all saw our hog farmers, and that's what's happening now with dairy CAFOs. But it's also calling it like it is. Like, it's really hard. Like, talking about Tom Vilsack's really hard. I don't know if anyone saw the Journal, Milwaukee Journal had a story. He's a corporate sellout now. He's making $1 million a year. He's saying antitrust is not an issue. I put together this forum in Iowa this past year, the Presidential Forum, because everyone told me, no, antitrust, it's too wonky, no one will care, whatever. We wanted to show that, A, people do care. Also, as an Iowan, I don't think most Iowans realize how much power we have because of the caucuses. And by having that forum early on that quite a few people in this room went to, we were really able to make antitrust an issue. But Vilsack, right after that forum, said, oh, antitrust is not an issue. Companies can be big because they have patents and stuff. And the problem is with someone like Vilsack, he can really make a break on politics in Iowa. He shapes the conversation. He's a great gatekeeper. And it's one thing when we kind of know where Farm Bureau stands in all these issues because it has investments in a lot of these companies, but it's another thing when you see it on the left. So, I don't know. I think that's the beauty of this moment, is how do we seize these structures to change them for the better? I mean, these are policy choices, as we were saying. We can decide to have one foreign-owned CAFO, or we can decide to have 10 family farms, having pigs. I don't know if you guys saw, but there was an article on how there's the first truly robotic farm in North Dakota. Is that what we want? Is that what we want, or food? I mean, climate change is forcing us to reconsider all of this. Your tomatoes cannot come from Baja, California. Why? I mean, even my favorite thing to talk about too is school lunches. Why is every beef served in Kansas from the Kansas cattlemen and not from a Brazilian rainforest? That's a simple solution. That's a simple fix. Just imagine what that would do if we took all of our school food in Kansas and you made it come from Kansas farmers. What that supply chain would do. And as we talk about building Progressive Farm Coalition, we gotta talk about labor. Because you want that cafeteria, you want that lunch lady, you want that fast food worker in this coalition. Because that's the future I want, is where the ham sandwich, like some pork dish, is cooked by someone who made a good wage from scratch from a hog grown in the county. It's not a radical vision. What we have now is radical. And I think that's what we have to remind. Iowa has 25 million hogs that produce as much waste as 65 million people. That's California and Texas. And this stuff is not regulated. There's a story over here in Iowa where someone dies in a CAFO because they get the fumes and they fall into the manure pit. That's radical. That's broken. I'm rambling. I love it. I work on a book right now, if you can't tell, so I have a lot of thoughts in my head. Because we've been here before. And just 5 years ago, I was a tax economist at the U.S. Department of Treasury. I'm new to all this, and it's been really fascinating to learn, but it was coming from Iowa, going to DC, seeing all these Chipotle-type restaurants, and seeing, oh, I can get a better, more locally sourced meal in Washington, D.C. than I can at most diners in Iowa that are serving me CAFO food from Cisco. Something's broken here. Then I see in my tax data all these monopoly level profits being driven by agriculture. And Econ 101 says anyone can make a cracker. So why are cracker companies having monopoly level profits? And then so you just kind of, you start going down this rabbit hole, and you're like, oh, this could be something. So I wrote an article in American Conservative that essentially laid out this vision. How do we challenge power? So I'm working on it now to expand into a book. So yeah, is that good, Don? Yeah.